Good afternoon. The February 21st meeting of the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust will be in order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the February 7th meeting.
Move approval.
Second. Have a motion and a second to approve the February 7th meeting. Are there comments or questions? Hearing none, voting please. Minutes are approved. Next item is the consent docket.
Move approval subject to individual consideration.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Are there items to be considered separately? Hearing none, voting please. Consent docket's approved. Next item is the concurrence docket.
Move the concurrence docket subject to individual consideration.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the concurrence docket. Are there matters to be considered separately on that docket? Hearing none, voting please. Item 5, items for individual consideration. The first item is a joint resolution concerning Kitchen Lake, and I believe there's a presentation in that regard.
Larry Ogle from the Parks Department is with us this afternoon to tell us about the plans for the Southeast Park.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, trustees. I'm Larry Ogle from Parks, and we're here with this joint resolution that was at City Council this morning to consider declaring the Kitchen Lake property as a site for the new Southeast Park that's funded in the 2007 general obligation bond issue. In the 2007 general obligation bond issue, there was a project to develop a new park in southeast Oklahoma City. And there was $719,000 allocated in the bond issue towards that project. In looking at considering sites for this, it came to staff's attention, park staff's attention, of a site down on the West Elm Creek Reservation that's known as Kitchen Lake area. It's overall on a 160-acre tract of land, and the funding for this sale is included or planned to be included in this spring's bond sale upcoming in the next month or so, and then funding should be available to us in June of this year to begin development of this. So in taking a look at it, Kitchen Lake site is, you'll see depicted before you here in this aerial photograph. It's a 160-acre tract of land that has a lake on it that's approximately 40 acres in surface area. The rest of the land is a mixture of native trees, meadows, there's some wetlands area in it. It's a very nice piece of property that has some both good high flat spots on it, as well as some ravines and wetlands, and of course the most prominent feature on it is the lake. The interesting thing about this site, of course, is that when you consider park development, having water on the site is always an attractive feature that adds a lot to the way you can develop the site. This particular lake has also historically been known as a very good fishing lake. It has a fairly stable water elevation level. We believe it to be spring-fed in the way that it can hold its water level even through drought. Nice clear water quality. We've actually had our fisheries biologists out there sampling fishing in the lake, and there is a good healthy population of good-sized fish in the lake. And that's without it having really been stocked that we know of in a number of years. So it certainly holds some great potential for a good fishing facility. It also has significantly good access both from I-35 and I-240. The west property boundary is essentially along Sooner Road, State Highway 77H, so it provides great accessibility to the site, it being, I think, about 2.5 to 3 miles east of of the Lake Draper Reservation as well. This is another kind of an aerial photograph of it that, again, kind of gives you a different perspective and lets you see a little bit more of the land. It also indicates the proximity to the north of a residential development. There's some additional residential development both to the west and to the northwest of this. So it provides some good proximity to users or potential users, along with the accessibility from the interstates. Our park planning staff went ahead and prepared a potential sketch plan for development of the entire 160-acre tract, although at this point in time we would not be proposing to develop the whole thing. But you can see from this sketch that what it allows is a number of things to potentially be built here: fishing access, nice picnicking areas. There's a lot of potential for trails and walkways in the area. There's sufficient elevation changes in places to also provide nice family outing areas with shelters and overlooks onto the lake and the property. There's areas that are open and flat enough that potentially some practice athletic fields could be developed, along with playgrounds, basketball courts, and other more typical park amenities. We've even showed an area that could potentially be developed into a dog park out there. So it has all kinds of potential with the, when you look at particularly the entire tract. This is a depiction of a potential phasing plan for that development, with essentially what's marked as phase one down in the lower left-hand corner being the development that we're talking about at this point in time with the funding that we have. But it shows how it could be broken up into several different phases depending upon how funding might become available for future development. This is a little bit of a blow-up of that first phase conceptual plan, where what we're looking at doing is putting in a fishing dock, accessible, of course. There would be a number of both accessible and natural bank fishing areas that could be brought into play, walkways throughout, a couple of different parking areas, picnic shelter, and picnic tables and benches and things like that along there as well. Again, a number of nice elevation changes here on this piece of property alone that provide some great overlooks and some nice natural woods also in the area that would provide some really nice nature walk areas. This is about a 10.5-acre parcel at the corner, southwest corner of the lake, excuse me. So a timeline for this project has been laid out, starting with funds being available approximately June of this year, bidding and contract award through early fall, and the project construction completed by July of 2013. So just an idea of how we would see that going through should you choose to approve this resolution. And with that, that's the end of the presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
This was on the council agenda, and we discussed it some at the council today. So it's just a real opportunity for us, I think, because when the 760,000 or whatever the exact figure is was put on the 2007 bond issue, it was anticipated that that money would just purchase the land for Southeast Oklahoma City Park and perhaps do some of the beginning work with regard to design. because the Water Trust has this property and we're going to be able to transfer it to for the use of this park, well, that means we can build the park with the money as opposed to just buying the land with the money. And this is just a real ideal location, so.
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion or comments? Hearing none, voting, please. It's approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item is executive session. We do not need executive session.
Unless the council or the trustees would like a briefing on it, there's no new activity outside of what I think we all know about, but if you want to discuss it, we can do so.
Unless someone really wants an executive session, I'd entertain a motion to strike that. Motion to strike?
Second.
Motion and a second to strike. All in favor say vote. There it is. You voted. Next item is item from trustees. If no one else has one, I have one. A problem has arisen concerning the gun range, the clay gun range that was authorized recently and now it's opened this weekend. And there are people that live substantially beyond the notice area that are in varying degrees upset about the location of it. So I'm sure we're going to be hearing some about that. I have not met with any of them. Some of them have contacted me by phone. I've tried to return them. Now they're starting to get so many of them, I'm not sure I can return all the calls. But what I'm probably going to do is set up a meeting someplace, probably out that direction, so we don't inconvenience any more people than we have to, and try to discuss their concerns and see if any of them can be taken care of. They may not be, because one of their concerns is noise. But there are a number of questions being raised about what happens to the lead in buckshot when and how often, how long does it take for there to become lead poison in the ground and so forth, and some of those things will need to be responded to. And there's a possibility we might be able to regulate the hours of use or something a little bit tighter than we did to see. I don't know. I'd like legal to look into the situation about the lease. I guess it might be possible to evict them, but it seems difficult to me to make a lease with somebody and have them start the improvements and have it all been done properly. And then
isn't that a fairly recent thing, too?
Very recent.
As I recall, that we asked the question about lead during that initial presentation. We were assured that it was not going to be a problem. They were going to handle it.
I remember the conversation, but
They will recycle the lead, sir. They plan on recycling the lead.
again, it's being raised there, and I think I need to have some kind of a meeting, maybe on site or close to there, so we'll give people an opportunity to vent and to answer some of these questions that we can answer easily. Some of them we may not be able to answer. It's pretty hard to make a shot.
I'm sure we have a discretionary termination clause in the lease, but we may, if we choose to exercise that, there would probably be some reimbursement that would need to go back to the OSC.
Staff prepared a map showing you the general location of the lease. The area outlined in yellow is the lease boundary. The area in white, of course, is the Mesquite general area, and then there's a yellow within the yellow that's an oil lease. It gives you a rough idea of proximity to houses.
What is the closest residence to this operation? What distance is it?
It appears to be well over 1,000 feet. We did notify everyone within 1,000 feet. We have heard that noise carried from the range this weekend, and we believe it was atypical, but we've been talking to the leaseholder about the noise.
I just bring it up so I think if people understood the process and understood it was Water Trust land, perhaps some of you guys could get phone calls also. But
Yes, sir.
I could manage that for you
Staff's very happy to take the phone calls and also to help you in any way we can with
But we do need to have a meeting. I mean, people that were not in the legal notification range feel somehow deprived because they didn't get notice, so we need to have a meeting on site or something. I'm going to try to set that up in the next few days. I just want everybody to be aware of it.
Is
So
there a
maybe it's-
statutory requirement to notify people within a certain distance?
1,000 feet,
Yeah.
1,000 feet,
Yeah, we notified everybody within 1,000 feet of the boundary of the lease, right?
yes.
So I don't know who got notice and who didn't. Many of these residences are not, but some of the property may be owned by people within that distance, I would think.
Yes, sir.
Because the owner goes to the property owner, not necessarily a residence. But be that as it may, there's still, there may be a story on TV about it tonight. And I've decided I won't participate in a television exercise until we've had an opportunity to talk to people. I mean, that doesn't seem to me the logical first way to try to resolve a problem is to go to TV. So anyway, I just want to let y'all know that. Anybody else have any other items from trustees? Next item is the general manager report, and the first is a corrected status report for December 2011.
We added the water elevation at Lake Canton, which we'd accidentally left off the report that we gave you. And then the second report, we report that water use is generally normal for this time of year. We're pretty excited about that. We're starting up clarifiers, new clarifiers at the Hefner Water Treatment Plant that are part of our plant expansion, and that's caused us to use water. You'll notice that we treated more water than we pumped by a larger proportion because we're filling up tanks at Hefner and starting the recycling water through the treatment process to bring these new, unusual tanks on. I'm also very excited we put the southeast water line, the 60-inch pipe that we built about 2.5 miles more of 60-inch line that completes replacement of a 60-inch pipe north of the Draper plant at John Leon Douglas. That's was unreliable, caused a low-pressure problem in the downtown area last summer. So we're really cranked up about having that pipe in service. And Sharing continues to prosecute projects getting ready for the summer.
I want to thank you all for the work you've done on the sidewalk out there near the Hefner plant. They aren't quite finished yet, but they're making real good progress. Thank you.
Marshall, back to the status report, I think there's some significant things here that we should touch on. First of all, with the drought that's been going on, I think it's of note that Hefner is within a foot of where it was last year at this point in time. I think that's significant. People think it's down well. It's not too bad. Hefner is actually almost 2 feet higher than it was last year at this point in time. Draper is about where it was last year at this point in time. Actually, it was further down. It's coming back up, so it's not good, but it's in the recovery mode on that. Atoka down 5 feet. Last year it was down 3 feet, so it's a couple feet lower. But it's not terrible based upon the rainfalls we have. McGee Creek is actually 4.5 feet up into the flood pool, which I think is interesting. So we got really, that's a good thing. And then you get back up to Canton, and Canton is where we're the biggest differentiation. That's 10 feet lower than it was last year. And that's why, because we've taken the releases, that's why Hefner's the stage that it is. But I think it's really interesting. I think Marcia's doing a really good job of balancing the resources, and I think she's doing a good job balancing the resources.
It's a challenge. We did again see a small increase, 10% increase over last year in meters sold. That remains at low normal. Looks like we would end up at about 2,700 meters sold. We'd like to see 3,000 or more. And at the peak, we sold 4,700 meters in a year, to give you an idea of where we are.
So, Councilman White, if you're looking for a place to escape to get away from the shooters down at Draper, running up to Canton's probably not the answer.
I imagine. Okay, anything further? Any other comments from trustees or anything we need to talk about? Citizens want to speak? Anybody? Staff would like to complain about Marcia or anything else? All right, we're adjourned.